Hey guys, good to see you. I just got done doing an early morning TV segment, so I thought I'd keep the camera going, and I haven't done one of these clip shows solo for a long time. There was a few things in the news I wanted to address, um, and I think we should do that here. So I don't know if you saw this. So this is actually not great. In Aurora, Colorado, there is some gang activity. There was some captured in an apartment building on video. But Steve Miller, who is the advisor to Donald Trump, got a little out over his skis the other day during an interview. I think it was in the spin room after the presidential debate where his candidate did not have a great night. I think this clip is worth watching, maybe just for comedic reasons, but I do think if you are interviewing someone, a hostile interview, there are lessons to learn from this. Check it out.
Look at this Venezuelan gang. You have a Venezuelan gang that is taking over entire apartment buildings in Aurora, Colorado, and that's responsible, by the way, for some of the most heinous crimes that have happened all over the United States. The crime rate in Venezuela is down, I believe, a little bit over 60% over the last several years.
Are you trusting the official figures from the Venezuelan dictatorship?
Let's put it this way. If you're a dictator of a poor country with a high crime rate, wouldn't you send your criminals to our open border?
That wasn't my question. Are you trusting the figures of the dictatorships? Those are Maduro numbers.
I am believing that it is in the interest of a criminal dictator to let his criminals out of their jails and come to our country.
Do you have numbers?
Miller's so smarmy and condescending, but what I love about this, and we'll keep the clip going because it gets better, it gets much better, is that the journalist obviously is, I think, from Venezuela, gives him some credibility, but he is really, in a way, attacking Miller from the right. It used to be that the American left would take the word of what, like, how much grain production Stalin was producing in Russia. You can't take their word for it. You can't listen to dictators on what their crime rate is or whatever, how many children are reading. And so I like that this interviewer very persistently is calling out the BS.
Have numbers, real numbers, not the dictatorship numbers.
The Venezuelan gangs that have, you've seen the CCTV footage. I have a question. Who do you think? Answer me this.
My family is from Venezuela. I know very well the situation of Caracas and many other cities.
Right, tell me.
So here's a trick Steve Miller keeps trying to do is once he realizes he can't honestly answer whether he believes Maduro's numbers, Stephen Miller keeps trying to ask the interviewer questions, and that's almost always a trap. Whoever's doing the interrogating is winning, and Miller's desperately trying to take the initiative here. It doesn't work.
Who were the people with the high-powered rifles in the hallway of that apartment building? Who were they?
They were gangsters from Venezuela.
Right. No American community.
But I was asking to you about figures, numbers, facts.
The facts are the dead bodies. The facts are...
You said that Caracas has a lowest crime rate than the USA.
The facts are the mutilated bodies. The facts are the people in the morgues that are dead.
I was asking you about Caracas and the numbers in Caracas. Are you trusting the numbers of the dictatorship?
I am trusting the fact that Kamala Harris is letting illegal immigrants into this country who are raping and murdering children.
I had been very respectful. Why are you yelling?
Why are you yelling?
Do you know who Jocelyn Ungary is? Do you know who she is?
Do you know how many people is experiencing violence in Caracas?
Look how this interviewer just keeps his calm. He doesn't yell back. He doesn't lose his temper. He says, "Why are you yelling? I'm just trying to get facts and figures."
In Caracas?
Who is she? Who is Laken Riley?
Why are you yelling again?
Because I'm yelling because children are being raped and murdered.
I was just asking for figures, and you have not replied to me about those figures.
Murdered. Do you know who Kayla Hamilton is?
Do you trust the numbers of Nicolas Maduro? I'm asking again.
I trust a ruthless dictator will empty his prisons and send their criminals to our country.
So you trust his numbers?
The most dangerous gang in Venezuela is
now. You trust Nicolas Maduro?
I trust that he does not want his criminals to be...
So you believe in his numbers?
I believe he's sending his criminals to our country.
And do you think that the crime rate in Venezuela have decreased?
Do you not believe the law enforcement reports of Venezuelan gangs in this country?
I was asking for the Venezuelan government figures, not the figures here.
Are Venezuelan gangs in this country or not? Yes or no?
What are the figures that you say to say that in Caracas the number is lower than in the USA?
Are Venezuelan gangs in this country or not?
So you don't have numbers.
by the way, part of what Miller's trying to do is talk down America. America's crime rate is so high. Again, this goes back to, it's going to be a theme maybe, because I went to see the Reagan movie, and Reagan wouldn't want to talk down America or suggest that like a dictatorship is somehow better. So anyway.
We don't have numbers.
Are Venezuela? You know who has numbers? The Department of Homeland Security. You can ask Mayorkas for numbers. You can ask the Director Wray for the numbers.
Sir,
I'm telling you.
You said
think
that in
Nicolas
Venezuela
Maduro,
the crime rate is lower than the USA.
Yes, because
what
the
are your
criminals
numbers?
Here
That's
now.
my question.
Because the criminals are here now.
Those are Maduro's numbers.
I can tell you again that Border Patrol agents are encountering thousands
trust
of
Maduro numbers?
I trust the border agents in our country.
But
and
they
I
are not saying that Caracas has a
fundamental-
lower crime rate.
Children are dead, and you are wasting my time.
No, I am not wasting your
Children are
time.
being raped.
I'm
Do
asking
you
for
have
facts.
But I want to keep it going on this theme real quickly because something else happened that I think is a stark contrast. I want to show you a clip of J.D. Vance, something he just said recently about immigrants and immigration. And then I'm going to juxtapose it with Reagan. And I think you will see it's exactly the opposite, okay? So here we go. This is J.D. Vance this week.
Town. If the path to prosperity was flooding your nation with low-wage immigrants, then Springfield, Ohio would be the most prosperous country and the most prosperous city in the world. America would be the most prosperous country in the world.
All right, here's Reagan.
Lead is one of the most important sources of America's greatness. We lead the world because, unique among nations, we draw our people, our strength, from every country and every corner of the world. And by doing so, we continuously renew and enrich our nation. While other countries cling to the stale past, here in America, we breathe life into dreams, we create the future, and the world follows us into tomorrow. Thanks to each wave of new arrivals to this land of opportunity, we're a nation forever young, forever bursting with energy and new ideas, and always on the cutting edge, always leading the world to the next frontier. This quality is vital to our future as a nation. If we ever closed the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost.
All right. I mean, a stark contrast, right? Doesn't mean that we have to like have open borders. Doesn't mean that we, have to let everybody in. But just the worldviews. J.D. Vance sees immigrants as a problem. Ronald Reagan saw them as an opportunity. And I think that is incredibly stark. A couple other things. These are just sort of maybe some random things that caught my attention. I want to play this. This is I think he's an Oklahoma senator. You don't hear much out of him. Mark Wayne Mullen. He was on CNN, and he said something that I think deserves some pushback.
Attorney General Merrick Garland spoke about the threats against the Justice Department and election officials and what they are facing going into this election. He just launched this election threats task force. Last election, you were one of the lawmakers who voted to not certify Biden's victory. If Trump loses and every state certifies as the results of their election, will you accept a peaceful transfer of power?
It's hard to say what you're going to do and what you're not, because my job is to make sure their irregularities are within the standard that the federal government puts out place, which is us. What is the irregularities that we're willing to accept? If it's past those irregularities in a district or a state, then absolutely not. If it's within those standards, then we will.
So if every state certifies the election results, so they have their own processes in place.
If the elections are certified underneath the standards that they put forth, every state has the right to set their. Well, because every state sets their own state election laws, right? But the federal government sets the irregularities as to how far those can go. So is it going to be less than 1%? Is it less than 0.5%? Whatever those irregularities are, we'll take that case at a time. I will say this, Pam. At this point, it doesn't matter if the Republicans win or if the Democrats win. Both parties are probably going to cry foul. You got to remember in 2016 when President Trump won, the Democrats were saying that the election was stolen.
That's
and then he moved fast. But no, it's not. Well, it's.
All right, so I want to address this. He is engaging, obviously, in both siderism, which says that, like what Trump did, refusing to accept the outcome of a free and fair election, attempting to stop the peaceful transfer of power by pressuring his vice president not to certify the election and by summoning a mob to threaten to kill him. But that's the same as what what Democrats have done. Look, I think Democrats have acted irresponsibly in the past on occasion, some of them, right? So, for example, they're always every year, he's right in the sense that every year there are some Democrats, if a Republican wins, who will cry foul, who will not vote to certify their state or whatever. That does happen. That in no way is comparable to what Trump did. And I have to tell you, I was a regular CNN contributor in 2016 and 2017, and I can tell you that the general consensus among the establishment and the elites and Democrats was that Russia interfered with the election, but that Donald Trump legitimately won. Nobody's saying that like the election was rigged. Russia interfered, but not enough to change the election. Now, look, I think you could argue that James Comey interfered, but them's the breaks. That's life, right? Like when George W. Bush has a DUI, that's an oppo hit on him that's dropped right before the election. Is that that's interference? Al Gore interfered with the election, right, by like releasing this information about George Bush's DUI right before the election. Stuff happens in elections, okay? But anyway, I think this is a ridiculous attempt at both siderism. And it's, I think it's laying the groundwork for once again losing and claiming that Donald Trump won. Okay, I want to move now to this the issue of Laura Loomer. Not sure if you know who she is, but she is a really radical conspiracy theorist. I think she's a 9/11 truther, and there is a video of her. So if you're listening to this on audio, it won't have the same impact. There's a video of her, I guess we would say canoodling with Donald Trump might be a term for it. Let me just show it to you and I'll let you draw the conclusions.
She's actually... That's my software. That says Trump 2024. Thank you, dear. Thank you.
So it looks like I think they're at Mar-a-Lago. He's got his hand very intimately around her, but who knows? I can say, like, I think it's interesting that would it even matter? Like, if someone had evidence that there was like an affair between them, would it even be the top 10 list of things that Donald Trump, crazy things going on with Donald Trump? And I certainly don't think it would be like dispositive. I don't think Trump would lose a single voter because of it. So I think that once again, that's sort of proof about, this is hypothetical, but it would be once again proof of defining deviancy down and how Trump has like just changed our expectations for what we should expect of a president and raised the bar on what would constitute, or lowered, I don't know, of what would constitute a scandal. Interestingly, of course, Laura Loomer has been traveling with Trump a lot lately. That's what's helping fuel this speculation. And I think people suspect that part of the reason that Trump performed so poorly during that debate is who he's surrounding himself with, the kinds of people. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, who is someone who was prepping him, apparently didn't do a great job. But, look, when Trump invoked this kind of conspiracy theory about Haitian migrants eating dogs and cats in Springfield, Ohio, that was not a great moment for Trump. And you have to wonder, did that come by virtue of him, hanging around with Laura Loomer right before the debate? So if you want to get a sense for how crazy Loomer is and how dangerous she is, let me introduce Exhibit A, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
This is such an important election. I don't think that she has the experience or the right mentality to advise a very important president.
Why do you think the former president? I guess you consider that she's getting bad advice, or he's getting bad advice from her.
I'm not involved in their conversations, so I can't weigh in on that. But I do know this, that her rhetoric and her tone does not match the base, does not match MAGA, does not match most Republicans I know, and I'm completely denouncing it. I'm over it, and I would encourage anyone else that matches her statements to stop.
Loomer had a tweet that was, I think, fair to say racist, making fun of Kamala Harris, something to do with curry smells. I'm not sure. You could check that out. But look, when Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't think that your rhetoric and behavior is up to par to be able to advise Donald Trump, that's telling. But who knows? I think it might just also be jealousy. She doesn't like that some other person is advising Trump and it's not her. Maybe that's what it is. Okay, I want to leave you on this one. This is Fox News' Jesse Waters. He said something that I think is interesting and telling the other day on Fox.
But what makes him so emotional at these debates and so volatile is also a characteristic that makes him able to withstand getting his home raided, being called a Nazi for 5 years, being arrested, being put in a cold courtroom, being shot and standing up, fight, fight, fight. So yes, you can have a perfect candidate that acts like Mitt Romney with great hair and discipline and perfect talking points and elocution, but he's not going to be able to withstand the avalanche of attacks, dirty tricks that Donald Trump has.
All right, so I bring this up because I think it's wrong. I think Jesse Waters' sort of theory about Trump and Trump's value in the political universe is wrong. However, I think it's pervasive. Like, I think he's speaking for a lot of people who on the right who like Trump because they've come to the belief that a normal person can't win, can't survive. A normal Republican can't survive in this political environment, that things are just too tough. And so you have to, he may be an SOB, but he's our SOB. I think that's false on for a couple of reasons. So first, Donald Trump, as of today, appears to be heading toward another election loss. So if that happens, it means he will have lost 2 out of 3 presidential elections, and he will have lost the popular vote in 3 out of 3. Not only that, if you look at all the midterms and off-year elections that have taken place during the Trump era, the last 9 or so years, it's been pretty devastating for Republicans. So the idea that, yeah, we have to put up with Trump because he's a winner, because he's a fighter, only he can withstand. Well, you have to ask yourself, like, what are we getting out of this? Is this a good trade-off? Like, are we tired of winning? Look, the verdict is out. Trump could still come back and win, but I think it's a dubious notion that you got to go with him because only he can withstand the heat. There's also an assumption that someone like Mitt Romney was too weak, and I also think this is it's not demonstrably false. We don't know, but I think he's taking liberties with this assumption. So let's go back. So Mitt Romney runs for president in 2012, and he comes close, but he's running against Barack Obama, who I think was a generational political talent. Sometimes you lose. It happens. The assumption that like Rubio couldn't have, beat Hillary, or that Nikki Haley couldn't have beat Trump. How can we make that assumption? We don't know. Who knows? Nikki Haley could possibly be running away with the election. So it's impossible to know what would have happened. And just because Mitt Romney didn't win, I guess, is not enough evidence to convince me that it's all over. There's no way a normal Republican could ever possibly win. We've got to go with the crazy guy. It's Flight 93. Like, well, I'm not convinced of that. I don't think you've demonstrated enough evidence of that. Look, Ronald Reagan, back to the Gipper, was the great communicator. He existed at a time when the media dominated. There was no Rush Limbaugh. There was no Fox News. There was no Twitter. There was no Elon Musk didn't own Twitter. Like, there were basically 3 TV channels, and they were fairly hostile to Republicans. And yet Ronald Reagan won 2 elections, landslide, 49 states, and is called the great communicator. Now, again, you might say, well, but those days it was easy. Well, again, it was harder. There was no Republicans and conservatives had no outlets. The internet, really didn't exist. Talk radio wasn't. You didn't have Rush Limbaugh until I think 88, which is like Reagan's last year. There was no Fox News. Reagan had to find a way to exist, where he could persuade people and communicate with people. And he won 49 states. I don't think Donald Trump's getting it done. So anyway, I think that what Jesse Waters says is at best debatable. I don't buy it, but I'd love to hear from you. Let me know. Sound off in the comments. Maybe I'm wrong. Also, just like, rate, review this show if you like it here. I don't say this a lot, but patreon.com/Matt Lewis. Help us keep doing what we do, and I'll see you next time.